Why don't we go ahead and get started? I'm Dr. Greg Niemeyer. I direct the Office of CE and Psychology at the American Psychological Association and also the Center for Learning and Career Development. Welcome to today's presentation on leading and managing people and processes. Before we get going today, let me just do a housekeeping note or two. We're delighted to have you join us, whether you're joining us on-site live today or online live today. If you want to ask questions at any time, please feel free to do so. That'd be great. We welcome conversation, discussion, questions. If you're online and you want to ask questions, you'll see in the lower left-hand side of your screen is a tab that says questions. Just click on that and you can email us questions and we will represent those to Dr. Klein and he'll have an opportunity to respond to them. If you have questions, you're live on site, no problem. Just raise your hand. We'll bring the mic around to you. Again, we welcome your questions at any point. That's fabulous. Just be aware that if you do ask questions, engage in discussion, you will be making a recorded contribution in perpetuity to today's program. So that by way of implied consent. Let me introduce you to Dr. John Klein. We're absolutely thrilled to have him join us here today to talk about leading and managing people and processes. Dr. Klein joined the Troy University faculty in 2000 as a professor of education, and he became the director of the Institute for Leadership Development in 2003. He's previously served as the provost and the highest-ranking civilian employee at the United States Air Force's Air University at Maxwell. Dr. Klein also has completed the federal program for senior executives at the University of Virginia and the JFK summer program in international security at Harvard University. Most recently, he has the honor of being the recipient of the 2017 Algernon Sidney Sullivan Award. This award is a prestigious award that's presented to only select universities and colleges throughout the United States and recognizes the recipients for excellence in character and humanitarian service. Dr. Klein is demonstrating that humanitarian service by being here with us today and talking with us about leading and managing people and processes. Please join me in welcoming Dr. John Klein.
Thank you, Greg. Well, for those of you that are joining me for the second hour, congratulations. Maybe you can make it for the next one, too. I really hope so. And it's good to be back with you again. Took a little break there, and I see that I gained one in the front of the room, but they've kind of dropped off, the ones in the back. So I don't know what that means. They're probably still late for lunch, and maybe you're just getting back there, ate a little too much lunch or tried to take a nap. I'm not sure what happened. But earlier today, we talked about leaders that must be communicators, leadership and communication, and I said if you can't communicate, don't try to lead. I also mentioned what I'm going to talk about this hour. Now, if you just don't want to listen, here it is. You have to focus on two things to be a successful leader: the mission and the people, the task and the people, the processes that are going on in the people. And that's really the bottom line. Now, why do we spend so long at this? Because so many people are too much focused on one or the other. But now let's talk about this and bring some other things in. I'll refer back to a few things I mentioned earlier. I'll also telegraph ahead some things that are coming in the last presentation as I tried to put these together so they all tie together, and they really do tie together. So, people and processes, leading and managing people and processes. Now, there's an article, and I told you if you were watching earlier and listening earlier, that I've got a little article that goes along with each one of the presentations. Doesn't track exactly. The last one probably tracks the best, but I had some things, and these are not scholarly articles. They are ones I was invited to write. They're very practical, very abbreviated. They just tell what it's all about. And so I did use 7 points, which are worth mentioning here. Demonstrate a desire to serve. That should come out in every one of mine, that you should demonstrate a desire. We're going to talk both in this one and again a little bit in the next one about eliminating the process interference factors. A big thing to remember is when you're leading, you want to make sure that you don't have some process interference factors that make it impossible for the people to achieve what you're trying to achieve. Continually improving the process. Such an important thing. People that don't improve the process will keep making the same mistakes, and as things change, they'll fall by the wayside, as many big corporations, many big retail outlets have done because they wouldn't make the changes, and we talked specifically about change in the next presentation to come. Knowing your people, that's so important. We'll hit that more than once yet again today. Communicating effectively, that was a lot of what the last presentation was about, but because it's so important, we need to keep reminding ourselves that we must continually seek to be better communicators. Listening, we talked some about that last time. We'll mention it one more time again today, a little bit different context. And then being an encourager. So those were the 7 points, and I don't follow this outline, but every one of these points will come out today. Now, today, it's about managing people and processes. And in the article that goes along with this, I said this: leadership without management is vision without fulfillment. In other words, people must be leading, people must be managing. The best leaders have to also know how to manage, and quite frankly, the best managers have to know how to lead. Now, sometimes this gets confusing because there are some oversimplified statements out there about leadership and management. You've seen these, I think. If not, you can find them. Some people say, well, leaders lead people and managers manage things. Well, maybe to a certain extent, but that is not true. You have to do both. Leaders work for change. Managers work for stability. Well, leaders also want some stability in the organization. Managers also ought to be looking for how to change. Third, leaders focus on the long term, managers on the short term. I think you're a better manager if you can look out ahead. I think you're a better leader if you don't ignore what's going on right now. Again, oversimplified, some truth, but a lot of non-truth in the statement. Leaders find new roads, managers find existing roads. To an extent, that's true. But managers are often in the best position to find the new roads. And leaders must know the road they're traveling on now. Some leaders just get ignorant of the fact and don't realize what's really going on in the organization. Managers do things right. Leaders do the right thing. That's strange, I think. Shouldn't we all do the right things, and shouldn't we all do things right? Those are some popular statements that have been out there. Big articles by some very impressive people that really come down to this. I think don't take it too seriously. Now, in my 2008 article, and it was in the Military Comptroller, as I said last hour, I had gotten to do a lot of consulting work and a lot of speaking and a lot of workshops for military comptrollers, people from all the branches of the service, military and civilian. So they started asking me to write a series of little articles, and so I did. But I said managing people and processes, leadership without management is vision without fulfillment. And again, what I've just said, leaders and managers must be able to do both. Processes that produce the product, they have to do the mission and the people. They have to do the task and the people. They go hand in hand. That's really what this whole presentation comes down to. Now, 3 things. I'm going to talk about leading and managing yourself, leading and managing the processes, and leading and managing the people. You have to get that first one in. They're interwoven. We're going to talk about each one today. Now, leading and managing yourself. This is what I'm going to say in just a minute. I'm going to talk about each one. Knowing yourself, prioritizing your life, managing your time, adjusting to and managing change, and be a servant leader, as we talked about last time, and manager. By the way, you might think that's kind of cute how each one gets progressively longer. I play around with these slides sometimes to amuse myself. If I can get all the points doing them that way, then I do it. And when I usually show these slides, I can show each one in a build-up fashion, so it shows the first one and the next one. It just keeps going out and keeps going out, and you're thinking, what's he going to say to the next one to make it fit that? But you don't get the benefit of that today. Now, servanthood is a necessary prerequisite. And let me repeat what I said last hour. I think leaders must be servants. And if you are a servant, that means you're doing what's best for the individuals in the organization and what's best for the organization. Doesn't mean you're a slave to what they want. It means you're a servant to what they need. Now, know yourself. I liked what Henry Ford said. If you think you can or think you can't, you're right. A lot of it is in believing in yourself and knowing yourself. I went off to Iowa State University. I was 23, 24 years old. And I went off, and I remember in the library I saw Know Yourself, Socrates. I didn't know who Socrates was, and I thought, what a stupid thing. Sure, I know myself. I've been living with myself for over 2 decades. I know myself. But I've gotten to think about that a lot. How well do we know ourselves? How well do we let our followers tell us things? How well do we listen to them? You know, something that's kind of interesting is sometimes, it's kind of fun, take a couple pieces of paper and on one write all the things that you're pretty good at. On the other one, write all the things where you have weaknesses. That's just a pretty good thing to do. Now look at the places where you have weaknesses and say, well, some of these I probably can't do anything about. Like when I was 20 years old, I would have liked to have been bigger so I could have played lineman on the football team at college. Well, I couldn't do that. There was no way I could do that. But there's some other things you can do, and you can do some things about them. And if you know what your weaknesses are, that helps you to gain strength in that area. But it also helps you know some things probably don't worry about, press on and find things that you can do. But you know, one of the things that I found out is sometimes we think we can't do things and we can. I know Miss America thing, I guess, was I don't pay any attention anymore, but in 1996, and my wife always liked to watch such things, so I'd humor her and watch them with her. But I was really interested in 1996 because Miss Alabama, Heather Whetstone, was a finalist. I was interested especially because here's a girl that had had an illness and she was deaf. And yet, this beautiful young lady danced to the song, the Via Dolorosa. I mean, people cried because she could just feel the beat just right. Well, she won. She was Miss America. Other people would have said they couldn't do it. I think sometimes one of the things we need to do, and I will talk more about this in a little bit, on the importance of being committed and persevering. I think one of my best stories has to do with George Washington Carver. Carver was born, we think, in 1864. His master, when he was a baby, because he was a slave, a parent of a slave, his master was named Moses Carver. Well, his mother and the babies were stolen away. Actually, the mother died. Carver went after them, and he got this baby back and raised it as his own, gave it his name, George Washington Carver, because this was Moses Carver. He got him educated. He was looking for a college. This is the part I like. The only college that would accept this African-American guy was Iowa State University, my alma mater. What a great school, far ahead. Carver got his bachelor's and his master's, went down to when Booker T. Washington asked him to come to Tuskegee. If you've read a little bit about the history, this guy did more for Southern agriculture. This guy was really known for his work with the peanuts. Man, I like peanut butter and honey. Every time I eat peanut butter and honey, I think of George Washington Carver and all he did and the use of the peanut. There was a guy that could have said no, and he wouldn't quit, and his adoptive father wouldn't quit on him. So maybe I got off target a little bit, but maybe I didn't. Know what your strengths are, know what your weaknesses are, know what your weaknesses are you can do something about, and then do something about them. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So know yourself, look at your accomplishments, take those as a basis for believing, and then decide what can I do to be even better. Probably few people watching on that television that approach my age. And as I said before, I'm not even 78 yet. So what I'm trying to say is, keep on trying all your life. Believe in yourself, not be cocky, but we talked about the importance of confidence. So you need to know yourself, you need to believe in yourself, you need to know yourself and be committed. You say, well, John, why did you put a picture of a pig and a chicken? You told us earlier you grew up on a farm, that you were a farmer. You know that pigs and chickens don't hang out together. Well, that's true. And I grew up in Iowa where we had pigs and chickens. But this was an interesting story. A pig and a chicken had become best friends. And so one day, the farmer happened to leave the gate open, and the pig got out, and the chicken flew, and they said, let's go into town. It's our chance. So they walk into town, this pig and chicken, if you can imagine, and they look up, and they see the sign on the restaurant said, ham and eggs, $3.50. Chicken said, isn't that great? It just makes me feel so good. I'm so excited. Pig said, for you it causes excitement. For me it would take real commitment. So, know yourself and be committed, because commitment is key to accomplishing things. You have to be committed. That's why you've done well in your profession. Those of you that are now in the profession or teaching or have your own practice or whatever you're doing, it's because you are committed to that. And we talked last time at the very end about being sincere and committed to what you're doing. Know yourself and persevere. I like this quote by Benjamin Franklin. It says simply, energy and persistence conquer all things. I like to see people that are really persevering. I used to run, which is probably why I had to get 2 new knees. We were talking here a while ago. That's why I had to get 2 new knees. I probably wore them out at one time. And so now I got these new knees, see? But anyway, I always liked to watch. I was never fast enough to compete in a marathon. I used to try to run the big distances, but I was a good deal too slow. But I always liked to watch them. In 1980, in the Boston Marathon, there was a female runner, Rosie Ruiz. Well, they showed the beginning and they showed the ending, and she won ahead of all the women and most all of the men. But something was wrong because nobody had ever heard of her before. And she looked pretty fresh at the end. And they said, They began to investigate, and they found out that she had jumped on a bus just a couple of miles into it, got close to the end and jumped off and took a lead and went on out. Tried to work for her. It worked for her. And they said, Rosie, why did you do that? She said, I didn't have the endurance to run the whole race, which gives a little thought to the phrase, let us run with endurance the race set before us. But in talking about that, I saw other people like Billy Rogers, who was running at the same time. Wow, what a runner he was. But one of the ones I liked best came before that. The guy's name was John Stephen Akhwari. John Stephen Akhwari was running in the Olympics, and I think it was 1975, 74, whenever, Mexico City. It was in the mid-70s when he was running in Mexico City. I guess it'd have to be an even year. So he's running in Mexico City, and he was a favorite. Now, television coverage wasn't like it is now, but you saw portions of the race, and they did show us the beginning, and they did show us a place where he stumbled. Evidently was bumped and he fell. Nobody expected him to finish the race. Now they come in at about 2 hours and 10 or 11 minutes, which is amazingly fast, it seems like to me, for 26 plus miles. Comes in, he's not in the lead. The next one's come in. A lot of the people would not leave the big stadium because they knew John Stephen Akhwari was still in the race. He came in much later. He was limping, he was running, he was bruised. He crossed the finish line and collapsed. And they asked him, they said, why did you stay in a race when you had no chance to win? And he said, my country sent me 6,000 miles to finish the race, not to quit. Wow. Perseverance. It's so important. Now, I would imagine most of you here and sometimes have persevered very much, and that's why you've accomplished what you've accomplished. I imagine you can also think of times when you quit a little bit too soon and you should have kept on. And you think, if I just would have gone a little longer. One of the things about knowing yourself is knowing yourself well enough you know how to make yourself persevere. It takes perseverance. Prioritizing your life. I found this and I thought it was kind of a nice little picture because it really shows there are some things that are important and some things that are urgent. Now, if you're in a fire, that is important and urgent. It needs to be done now. If it's a little distraction here, you're not going to see that bird if you don't look, so it's urgent. But it may not be that important, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Up here, your quality time, however you define that, that's probably urgent that you get that in, and it's important. Spending time with your families is important. You can't always do it all the time, but it's urgent that you don't let it go too long. I used to have to travel a lot. I missed it, but I kept in contact with my family, tried to make it up to them when I got home. And then there are some things that are neither important or urgent. Now, if I could have found the right picture, I probably would have put a lot of social media stuff on here, which is it's not that important. I do it, but it's certainly not urgent in most cases. The point is, you have to prioritize your life. I think you've all discovered that, but that's something we have to keep learning so that we use our time that we've got, that limited time we have here on earth, we use it for whatever we want to use it for and need to use it for. It's part of knowing yourself. If you don't know yourself, you're liable to waste time. managing your time. Fits right in. I'm not going to say anything else about it. I'm not going to teach a lot on time management, but I think we have to continually look. I have to write stuff down. This has got to be done by then, this has got to be done by then, and I try to beat the time. I try to beat the time it's done. I don't have too much trouble with deadlines that way. Even when I had to prepare these slides, when I do this, I was given a May 1st deadline. I thought, I'm going to beat that. So, I can tell you in the back of the room, I got these in plenty early. Gave me a chance also to spend some time if I wanted to make a change or two, which I did. I wasn't up against a deadline. Do I always manage my time effectively? No, but I do the best that I can. So, this is one we're going to spend the whole last hour on, is handling change. I thought this was a cute little picture. Here's the mother changing the baby. That's a kind of change that needs to be managed, but we have to. One of the big weaknesses of leaders is not managing and implementing change the way that we should. That's why we're spending a whole presentation on that. I actually look forward to that presentation as much as any of the three that I give here today. As I told the earlier group, I will look at you in the camera when I feel like it, which is a lot of the time, but I'll also look at the people in the audience here. So when you see me looking away, I'm actually looking at people. I'm not looking out. That's a pretty good scene out the window, too. No, I'm not going to look out the window. That's all there is. A lot of activity out there. Okay. W. Edwards Deming, a name worth knowing about. He was really a guy about change agent. If you were here paying attention to stuff 25 years ago, you knew about the TQM, Total Quality Management. We still are reaping benefits from bringing total quality management, total process improvement. Deming said, and I actually met Deming. I mean, he was old. He was 90 years old when I met him. He was old compared to what I am now. And I actually met him. I actually had a meal with him with a few other people. I actually heard him speak. Don't have time to go into the history of all he did, but he revolutionized the way things are done around here. We were slow catching on. Japan used him first and moved out ahead. They really did. He says it's not necessary to change because survival isn't mandatory. If I could stop just a minute here, and I'm not picking on anybody, but you know what's happened to Sears and Roebuck lately. We had a very good Sears in Montgomery, Alabama, where I live. There was a very good Sears over in Auburn, Alabama. There was a very good Sears in Prattville, which is not very far away. The Prattville store closed. The Auburn store closed. The Montgomery store is closed. You remember when J.C. Penney was big. You remember when you just loved to go to Kmart. I mean, 40 years ago, wow, Kmart. You've seen many Kmarts around lately? Well, you don't have to change. Survival isn't mandatory. That's why we're spending the whole last presentation here on implementing change. I think survival is mandatory for most of us here. So, to hit something I said before, and I took a Harry Truman quote. It's amazing what you can accomplish if you do not care who gets the credit. Servant leaders are more interested in helping others in the organization. Let me pause and say something else. Because this is what I teach college kids, because I know it's true. I say, I've gotten to my age. I look around at other people my age, people I've known for a long time, and I look at those people that were in the world just to take care of themselves, prioritize themselves, and I look at the people that were in it to serve others in the organization, and I am absolutely sure of this. As I look around, all else being equal, the people who have a servant heart about them, when they reach my age, are healthier intellectually, emotionally, physically, and spiritually than the people that are in it for themselves. And by the way, if I were to look and take the average, I don't find that the people in it for themselves came out any better off financially, although I don't think that's the most important thing. So I said, believe it or not, if you're doing it to help others, you win. You win. There's no reason not to be a servant. Now, some points from the previous presentation very quickly. We talked about the traits of character, competence, and confidence, talked about the different styles of authoritative, participative, and delegative, just to remind you the key things we said. Now, you may be asking, well, Klein, holy cow, you spent 25 minutes on the first point and it wasn't even what the thing's about, people and processes, and you spent it on yourself rather than others. Well, why would you be doing that? Answer. You manage yourself, and leading and managing processes and people becomes much more manageable. Okay, so that's why I spent the time. Now, process focus. Without enough attention to believer, but to followers. If you're just looking at the process, you think followers need a lot of direction. Well, they do some, but you see people that meddle. You see people that are just in your business all the time. When I've had people give me something to do and I'm competent to do it, I don't want them in there all the time micromanaging. It's a big problem. Besides, I don't have time to micromanage. If you know what you're doing, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to you, inspect you. I don't need to be in there micromanaging. You can come to me if you have a question. Followers possess a lack of initiative. Some do. But by the way, if they know that what they're doing is good for them and for the organization, most people have plenty of initiative. It's only when they think they're filling a square. Only when you treat them just like they're an item to be treated. Another thing is, followers are indifferent to organizational needs. But you see, you as a leader communicate that as the organization goes, so go the people in the organization. People begin to pull together. They realize that what's best for the organization is best for me. What's best for me is what's best for the organization. Goes back to that community building and team building, which we're not really talking about today. And leaders should tell, they believe what to do, but how to do it. One thing I learned, and I did rise to a high level, a senior executive level, but I found out sometimes the very young sergeants, the enlisted personnel, had some better answers on stuff than I did. I did gain a reputation of saying, if somebody is far down in the organization has something good to tell me, I'll listen. Well, think about now what kids know that we don't know. Think about how some of us old can be technology challenged, and the young kids can help us. Not that we don't have some stuff we can't tell them too. It goes both ways. Sometimes I say, here's what we have done, but if you find a better way, you tell me about it. We may take your way. True people with only process orientation, which often ties up with authoritative leaders, but not always, because servants have to at times be authoritative leaders. So, people focused, individual needs are more important than organizational ones. Okay, you take a day off because I'm more happy. I want you to be happy even if a job doesn't get done. There are people that are almost that way. They go overboard and saying how important people are. I just want my people happy. Well, they won't be happy if the organization fails and they don't have a position anymore, I'll tell you that. Yes, followers' happiness is important, but there are dangers. There are dangers. If I've let you do your own thing and finally I have to do something, you don't like it if I direct you. Parents out there, have you ever sent your kids off to grandparents and they spoil them? Yeah, we're good at that. So the grandparents spoil them, and then they come back, and you tell them to do something, they say, Papa didn't make me do that. Grandma didn't make me do that. It's kind of tough because they've gotten used to it. Of course, I always said, yeah, but kids, you're not with them now, you're with me. Of course, then I got even with my kids. I spoil the grandkids and send them back home, so the same thing happens. But they don't like it if they've given too much freedom to do anything they want, and finally I say, you got to stay and get this done. Wait, what's going on here? They may take out their frustrations elsewhere. You can't take them out at work, so what do? You go home and yell at your kids. You go home and don't kick a dog. I love animals. Please don't kick your dog. But we do. We take out our frustrations other people. We're ordering something in a fast food line and we get impatient with the person. We realize, I'm not really impatient with that person. I'm upset at what happened at work today. People tend to do that if they can't express who they are. Followers' happiness may not equate with success. Just because people are happy doesn't mean they're successful. It doesn't mean they're fulfilled. It certainly often does not spell success for the organization. And finally, followers' happiness may not even equate with self-esteem. See, if I tell you, okay, it's okay to take off today. I want you to take off and have fun. Besides, I don't need you anyway. Now, how if instead I say, yeah, you can take off to go to your son's game, but I got to have this done. Can you get it done for me tomorrow? You say, yes, because you're the only one that can do it. So I may give you something, but I expect something in return. Most of us would rather be needed than just given carte blanche to do whatever we want to. so I don't feel too good about myself. He doesn't need me anyway. He's letting me go because I'm no good. But I say, no, I've got to get this from you. Now, the dual focus. I like what the military says. Mission first, people always. So what's the most important? Both. Mission first, people always. The mission has to get done. You're not serving the people if the mission doesn't get done. But you won't get the mission done if you're not also focused on people and their needs all the time. This is simple. It's pretty simple stuff. You're going to say, Klein, you keep saying it over and over. Yes. Make sure you're doing them. Make sure you're doing it. This is one of the single most important things that you as a leader manager can do. If I can show that what's best for the group is best for the individual, what's best for the individual is best for the group, that's a good start. Then you're going to want to satisfy the organizational needs. You want to satisfy the community needs. You want to be part of this team. You're an important part of the team. Yes, I can be flexible. I can let you go to your son's ball game, but I expect this to be done. You know, blessed are the flexible, they won't get bent out of shape. You've heard that. But you still don't be so flexible that you don't get things done. You can be flexible and still demand a certain level of people that can do it. And they gain, the company gains, everybody gains. Expect increased self-esteem and productivity if people know mission's got to be done, you're part of it. Yes, I do care about you. We'll adapt the best we can, but you've got to go to do this. This one thing needs to be done by you. Now, lead and managing processes. I'm going to talk about these. Align the processes with a strategic plan. The last hours when we talk about strategic planning, having a vision, having a mission, having a plan on how to get that. So you want to make sure that the processes people are doing are really in line with what your organization's mission is. This to me is a big failing I see many times from some otherwise very good leaders. Have I done it wrong? Yes, I have. See, you're learning a lot based on what I found out from my own life. As I said earlier, I've read all the books. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. I've read the theory, I've done that. But I'm taking this from my own experience where I learned by my mistakes or learned from some successes I had along the way. Eliminate the process interference factors. We'll talk about those. Delegate processes. I want to say a little bit more about delegation just to kind of introduce it today and what delegation really is, and continually improve the processes. Now, aligning the processes with a plan. Not going to take long on this because we're going to spend a little time on it next time, the next session. Know your vision, know your mission, know your plan. I'm going to present kind of a simple but very, as simple as it is comprehensive on what strategic planning is all about. And I can teach in more detail, but this is really all we need to know. Determine how to fit the processes with the plan. Identify what processes, continually improving the process. Goes back to the stuff that Deming and others taught. Continual process improvement. It's key. We shouldn't forget the message that he left us and what we've learned from it and how American industry has benefited because of that. Make the adjustments. Monitor your adjustments. Tweak them. Just because you've changed it doesn't mean you've got it clear right. It means keeping going back and visiting what's going on. Now, again, change and planning are in the next presentation. So here's some things. A process interference factor is anything that prevents the process from going well. Some of the common ones. Time. If I give my secretary 6 letters to type, prepare in the next 15 minutes, I haven't given her quite enough time, have I? Should have given them to her yesterday, shouldn't I? How many times are we guilty of that? We give people something to do and don't really give them a legitimate amount of time. Now, sometimes it's beyond our control, but very often it's within our control. We just don't do it. So time is one. It's one of the big ones. The next one I listed there was tools. Have I given you all the tools you need? Have you given you, and we'll say it in a minute, the training you need? Have I given you the people you need? Have I given you the resources you need? We restrain and constrain the resources and expect people to do the impossible, and shame on us because we haven't thought ahead on any of these things here. Have I told people really what I want? Have I given them the guidance? I don't know it's important you remember each one of these, but you remember what I'm getting at, that we're talking about there are things that interfere with getting the process completed. Do they know the policy? Are they clear on the policy here so they know exactly what's going on? Do they have the training so that they know exactly what they're doing? Do they have the facilities they need? If I ask you to do something without giving you the facilities, now the bottom line on this, think about anything that can interfere with getting a process done. Anything that keeps us from continually improving the process. Subordinates can't succeed without resources. And leaders and managers must monitor the process or have somebody do it. Processes need to change. That's why businesses go out of business. That's why organizations become not very effective anymore. It's a continual process improvement. So you can't lead and be focused just on the people. You have to be focused on the process as well. Time, training, and trust are the big things if you're going to delegate. Will I take the time, if somebody's new, will I take the time to make sure that person understands? This is, again, as I said this last session, sometimes we think, oh, I could do it faster myself. Well, sure. But look on the long range. If this person learns to do that, think of the load this person will take from you. Think of the learning that will happen in this person's life because you're helping the person learn. Thinking of the long range effect. So it takes time. It does take the training. If I expect you to do something, I better give you the training so you can do it. Do we have a mutual trust? Do I trust you're going to come to me if you have a problem? Do I trust you that you're not going to do something too stupid? This is why when I first delegate to people, I'll say, now I'm available to you at all times. Don't worry, you can cut through any red tape. My secretary knows, she knows what you're doing for me. When you want to see me, you get to me that day. We're going to do it. But I trust you that you'll come to me. I trust you enough I know you won't come if you're not coming because you're understanding what's going on. This is something I could talk a lot about. Actually, the best book on delegation, if you want to write this down, it belongs to a friend of mine who's going to quit. He's kind of self-publishing them. He's going to quit, but he's going to let me put it on a PDF. So I hope to have it out there in a month or two. It's a book by Pete Land. It's called How to Delegate Effectively. It's a simple book. It's a simple book, but he tells all the essence of how to delegate. Now, if that doesn't come out there pretty quick, you can sure get a hold of me. It'll be easy to find me at jklein@troy.edu and say, where is it? Because he said he was going to sign a little thing and I could put it in a PDF because I use it in one of my classes at Troy. Because I've not found anything that good any place. I really haven't. It's a simple, read it in an hour or two. Go back and keep looking at it. It tells you some very basic things. Those are 3 things he said. Delegation is people-centered and it's process-centered, but you can't really separate them. Here's what he said in the very closing, so I just copied from him. You describe the task and the expected results. I like the way he used this acronym. It sums up his whole book, although there's more stuff to gain from it. You explain the purpose. If people know the purpose, they're more likely to do it. If they think, why am I doing this? But if they know there's a purpose behind it. List the benefits. Now listen, benefits for the delegatee, the person I'm delegating to, the delegator, because I'm getting people to do my stuff, but the organization. If it's done right, 3 things benefit. The individual that's doing the job, the person that delegated the job, and the organization. That's what effective delegation is about. Too many times, people just push it off. That's delegation. That's not delegation. Now, if I know that you know what you're doing, and we're into that, that's okay, it's different. But I delegate it because I trust you, because you've done it, because I know you'll come through, because I know you won't do things wrong, because I know if you have a question, you'll ask me. Examine, before I give it to somebody, do you have the skills and abilities to do it? If you don't, I better provide you some training or I better give it to somebody that does. Give authority. So I say, I gotta have this in 2 weeks. And here's the resources that help you get it done. I have to make sure that I've set the time limits. Here's all the resources you can have to do it. We have to understand what's going on here. Gives you a chance to ask some questions before I do it. And then assign the resources. Again, process interference factors, if we don't have them. Teach and establish the control processes. Teach and establish what it is, the limits. Let people know that. And then the big one, expressing thanks for a job well done. Expressing thanks for a job well done. Saying thank you. Two most important words to your people, say thank you. I teach my students the importance of thank you. They listen to many very great speakers in the last class. We go on a field trip that has a lot of them. We have the governor talk to them, different people talk to them. So anyway, each of my students is required to do a handwritten thank you note, 25 of them, and show me evidence they've done it. It's a big part of their grade. They've got some other things if they just do them. Many of them come back several years later and say, that may have been the best thing we learned, was the importance of saying thank you. So, say thank you to your people when you do a good job. Don't wait too long. One thing I used to do, and I had quite a few people that were working for me, and I would go around to the different units, different places, not all on the same base, different places, and I'd go in, I'd walk. I was a management by walking around. Well, I would often send little thank you notes. My secretary made me set a certain certain amount of time each week to write thank you notes. I would go around to somebody that was a distant site, and there was my thank you note from a year earlier in front of them. People like those thank you notes from the big guy. It wasn't the direct reports, it was people down 2 or 3 levels, and I wrote a thank you note. We got a letter from Dr. Klein, look at that. Well, I learned all that from my wife, who was great at writing thank you notes to everybody for everything we got. I'm not quite as good as she is, but I do know the importance of saying thank you. If that's all I said today, that's the most important thing, maybe. Well, maybe process and people is the most, but this is a pretty important thing. Now, the process. I mentioned Deming. I mentioned him. I said it's not necessary to change. Survival is not mandatory. He said, if you can't describe what you're doing as a process, you don't know what you're doing. We don't have any processes. Oh, well, what are you doing? Well, because I value so much what he did and look at the results of what he did, I'm going to listen up. Now, he came out with this. He's the one that popularized it. I think a guy named Short really came up with it. But he came up with this plan, do, study, act. You plan what you're going to do. You execute it in a small scale. Study how it did before you implement it. I know you're familiar with that. Good food chains do this. They don't quickly make a change. They try it in a few representative markets and see how it goes. Then they fine-tune it a little bit and keep trying it. When they've got it like they like it, then they spread it out on a larger scale. I mean, the ones that are willing to plan. The ones that put something out there right away untested, it's a foolish thing to do. Yes?
Think of Coke Zero.
Tell me about it. Yeah, get the mic up here, yes. Coke Steve-O. Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, one of the good examples of companies not doing this as much as they should have, Coke, a while back, I don't remember how long, decided to have a product to compete with Pepsi. And they did some studies, but obviously not enough. And they came out with Coke Zero.
I remember.
And it was a flop.
I tried it and thought, ugh.
Yeah, that's what everyone said. So they clearly did not do enough, and it was just a disaster.
Good
for the
example.
company.
Coke Zero did not make it. You don't see Coke Zero out there today, do you?
Well, and their clients or their customers are worried that the regular Coke.
Would go down because of it.
Yeah. So
Good
anyway.
example. I got to keep that in my inventory. I knew about it, but I've forgotten. That's a good one. Yeah. Okay. So, plan, do, study, act. Here's what the little thing you can find on the internet. You can find it. You go out there. You'll find all this. It just says, what you plan, then you do it, and then you study what you've done and you act. Again, it's the basis of continually improving how you do things. Don't ever get stuck on doing things the same way. Don't ever get stuck. An example that might be relevant to some of you is that many people were stuck on, and I still like it, a traditional worship service, but contemporary has really taken it away a lot of places. But you know what I remind people is what you consider traditional wasn't traditional 150 years ago. It was a different approach. The music that you like in your traditional service, and some of you would know if I started naming, are not the things that they had 200 years ago, before Fanny Crosby began writing hers, before John Wesley or Charles Wesley wrote some of his and so on that have become favorites of and other people. So you have to continually see how you adapt the process. Doesn't mean you change your core values. Doesn't mean you change the beliefs on what your company should do, or your organization, or your business, or your university, or whatever it is. What it does mean, you adapt. So you plan, do, study, and act. I wish I'd have said that first, but I like it so well. It just fits kind of what we ought to do. Now, leading and managing people. We're going to hit some stuff we said last session, but I'm going to enlarge on some of it too. I sometimes use this as just a talk. I call it the 3 8s of leadership. Communicate, relate, and motivate. I've thought I could make 4 and have delegate, but I didn't put that in. But these 3 really cover a lot of things. Now I could do it without any more slides here, probably easier, but I've got some slides I prepared. So, people. You share meaning effectively. If you can't communicate, don't try to lead. I think one of my favorite I don't know exactly what stories I'm going to use when I start here, but one of my favorite stories I've actually been using since it happened in 1977, before some of you were born. My wife and I had moved to Montgomery, Alabama from Mizzou, Missouri, as I said last session. And so it was 1977. My wife called me. She was from Illinois. I'm from Iowa originally. She said, my Uncle Lawrence and Aunt Layla will be down from Kewanee, Illinois. We don't have a present for them. Could you get away from work? It was just before Christmas. A little early, maybe we could buy something. I said, sure, honey, I'll tell you what, I'll meet you at the main door of Gayfer's department store in the mall. Now, Gayfer's predated Dillard's and some of these other stores. Now, Montgomery had had the Montgomery Mall, but they had recently built the Eastdale Mall. Each had a Gayfer's department store. This is before the days of phones, cell phones. So I drove out to Montgomery Mall. It's closest to where we lived, and my wife wasn't there, which didn't bother me because my wife, Ann, with all of her tremendous qualities, sometimes didn't get places on time. Now, Ann is a lot quicker thinker than I am, and she also knows that I'm very punctual. So Ann figured out the problem. She'd gone to Eastdale Mall. I'd gone to Montgomery Mall. She got in her car and drove the 4 or 5 miles down from Eastdale Mall to Montgomery Mall. But the problem didn't end there, because I had said, I will meet you at the main door of Gayfer's department store in the mall. And to Ann, very logically, main door meant the door from inside of the mall going into the Gayfer store. And I was thinking about an outside door. We finally got together, and I told that story after that, and I was talking in a little town of Wetumpka. See, the town, you would call it Wetumpka, but the natives call it Wetumpka, just like it's Montgomery. And they talk a little differently down there. It took me a while when I got down there to figure out people talk differently, but man, I can talk with those old rednecks and those southerners just like they can now if I need to. Pardon me if I'm offending any of you, I'm sure I'm not. So anyway, I told a story in Wetumpka, and it was a few days later, and I was standing down in the Penny store, which was also in Montgomery Mall. The fellow said, I heard you talk that story about you and your wife meeting at the mall. He said, where'd you tell her you're going to meet her this time? I said, oh, wait a minute. What makes you think I'm waiting for my wife? He said, you look like a man that's waiting for his wife. Where'd you tell her you'd meet her? I said, I told her I'd meet her right here in the only penny store in town, right here at the bottom of the escalator on the first floor. And I said, here I am. He said, yeah, and you're standing here at the bottom of the escalator that goes up. She's around the corner, the bottom one that comes down. Well, I didn't communicate. Goes back to what I said, you got to make sure you're effectively sharing meaning. As leaders, how many times do we say something and the people get a different meaning? We're not on the same wavelength. And we're not open to questions. We think, I already told you. Don't do that. You must communicate. This is the whole point of the first lesson in here. Leaders must be communicators. I'm going to do something. It's after lunch, and I know you may be falling asleep, so here's a little test for you to take. So there's 10 questions, and you look right there. Either 1 is never, 5 is always. It kind of goes up. Never, seldom, sometimes, usually, always. So if it's really you, it's 5. If it's not you, it's 1. Then you've got these things in between. So here we go. Do your words come out the way you want them to? Just answer them quickly as you can. Do they come out the way you want them to? Second, do you understand what others say to you? Third, do you tend to tune out those who disagree with you? 4, do people understand your nonverbal behavior? 5, is it difficult for you to express your ideas clearly? 6, can you remain calm when you're not making sense? 7, do you try to put yourself in the other person's shoes? 8, in a group, do you tend to talk more than other people? 9, do people understand when you explain things? And 10, do you like to hear what others have to say? Again, not a very scientific test, but one that makes you think about it a little bit. So, do words come out? Kind of hope you be a 5. Hope the next one's 5. You hope you don't tend to turn out people who disagree. You hope people understand what your nonverbal is. You hope you can express your ideas clearly. It's not too difficult. Do you remain calm when you're not making sense to people, or do you say, come on, why don't you understand it? I don't know. Do you put yourself in the other person's shoes? Oh, that's such a big one. Putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Do you tend to talk more than other people? Do people understand you when you explain things? Do you like to hear what others have to say? Just some things to think about. There's a lot of questions we ought to ask ourselves when we say, are we communicating effectively? Just a little break from what I was doing, get you to take a look at it here. Now, listening. Somebody saw this slide before. Notice I had big ears and said, is that a picture of you? I won't tell you who said it. It's in this room that said it. I won't say anything. I have noticed, by the way, that my ears have gotten bigger, I think, as I've gotten older. Maybe just everything else is shrinking up. I don't. Unfortunately, big ears do not mean you're a good listener. I'd be a tremendous listener. I did tell you my wife gets after me sometimes for not listening and not reading my own books on listening. My youngest daughter, when she was about 7 or 8 years old, we had a lot of international officers come to our house. I had a most interesting job at Air University. I had international officers I dealt with. I actually, when I was first down there, would teach the officers from other countries before they attended war college to kind of prepare them. So we would have them out to our home, which was really an interesting thing. These people from all these different countries and all different religions, so we were very, very sensitive when they were going through the time when they couldn't eat till the sun went down and all this. We got along great, we really did. We were having them come, and I said to our youngest daughter, now don't ask anybody to come home and eat supper and spend the night because we're having a lot of important people and their spouses are here tonight. Do you understand? She said, yes, Daddy. After a while, she said, could I go to Angie's house? I said, that would be good. But I'm going to pick you up at 5 o'clock and you be ready. You understand? You be ready. She said, all right, Daddy. So I took her over and I saw her mom, and I was glad she was coming. About 4 o'clock, the phone rang and it was Missy. She said, hi, Daddy, this is Missy. I said, Missy who? To try to be funny. You know who? I said, sure, what's up? I listened carefully. I heard her say, Daddy, would it be okay for Angie to come home and eat supper and spend the night? I said, no, Missy, I'm coming to get you right now. She said, Daddy, you weren't coming till 5. I'm coming now. I'm boss. So I drive over there. I go to the door, and there's Missy and Angie's mother. And Angie's mother said, John, wouldn't it be okay if Missy stayed here and ate supper and spent the night? I said, Bronda, that'd be wonderful. And Missy said, Daddy, that's what I just asked you. I said, oh, I thought you asked if Angie could come and eat supper and spend the night at our house. She said, you don't listen very good, do you? Sometimes we hear what we expect to hear. Sometimes we don't really hear what somebody's saying. Sometimes we don't look beyond the words and see what somebody really is, which comes back to what we said about relationship listening is just as important, sometimes more so than getting the information. Good relationship listening helps us to be more informed. Listening is a neglected communication skill. Stop and think about when you went to school, in grade school, in high school, probably college. You took courses in writing. You took courses in speaking. How many of you took a course in listening? When you were little kids, you took courses in learning how to read. We never teach listening. It is a neglected communication skill. That's why leaders must be listeners. That's why we have to continually work at our listening. I have to. I find myself falling into bad habits. I find myself not paying attention. I find myself into putting my meaning on instead of trying to understand the person, why it's so important to understand other people. So, listening is a communication skill. Nonverbal, this is the same thing we had last time. It just said there's so many things come to play. No reason to really look at that except it talks about the artifacts and the space and the time. It talks about the word choice, the current behavior, long-term behavior. All these things play in to the nonverbal. Our nonverbal as leaders is so important. Communication is necessary for relating. Leaders must strive all the time to be good relational individuals. One thing that I find out is so many people, as they rise in leadership positions, forget how it was when they were at lower positions. I find this to be a universal problem. Now, not with everybody, but it's universal in different areas. People just forget how it was. So sometimes we look at college students that were teachers, and we kind of forget how it was when we were in college. Raising our kids even, we kind of forget how it was when we were kids. It's so important to relate. Heard a story. This happened some years ago. It was in an elementary school, probably at one of the lower levels, first grade level or so, second grade. It was in an area that was a rural area, and there were a lot of school buses. Back in those days when the kids would jump in the buses, you didn't worry about them. Some of that, in many places, is still that way. So the kids would pretty much in a rural area would jump on the buses to go home. The ones in town wouldn't, but the ones that lived out were provided good transportation. So I was in the schoolroom, and they had a recess in the afternoon. And of course, the kids went out and played. Back in those days, they had a nice little recess. As long as their noon hour, the kids went out and played, had fun. This kid had gotten so excited out there, he came back and forgot to stop by the bathroom. Now it was late in the day, maybe 10 minutes till they got out, and the kid was thinking, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Before he knew it, he could feel water going down. He could look on the floor and he saw a puddle. He said, oh God, get me out of this. He said, the boys will tease me, they'll never, and the girls will just ignore, oh, that's just going to be terrible, what am I going to do? At that time, a little girl named Susie went over and picked up the goldfish bowl for no reason, really, and started to go down here, and she tripped on something and dropped it in his lap. He thought, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, you helped me. Now, all the ridicule was directed toward little Susie. A teacher came and said, oh, honey, Billy, I'm so sorry. Listen, there are a pair of dry pants back here. You go back here in the hallway, in our little closed hallway, and you put them on, and you leave these, and I'll take them home and wash them for you, okay? Well, while he was doing it, the bell rang, and they were dismissed to go catch the buses. He came out and hugged the teacher and thanked her and said, oh, I love you. Go catch your bus. He goes out there, and all the kids are in the buses except Susie. Susie's standing there all forlorn. Everybody's been teasing her. Suddenly it hits him. Susie, you dropped that on me on purpose, didn't you? She said, yeah, I wet my pants one time too. Is that empathy? That's feeling. That's understanding. You say, well, that's a little bit extreme. Yes, but I'm telling you, you ought to have some feeling for people. You ought to know about people. You ought to know what it is that motivates them. I found very useful, I would try to find out about personal stuff about people, not that I shouldn't find out, but just so I'd know what was going on in their lives. So I'd know some of the constraints they had. The example I told you about last hour, about somebody that wasn't seeming to tend to work, and then it was later I found out why. It was because I had a parent that was very ill. It helps knowing that. It helps understanding. This may be carrying it to extremes. I would used to try to stop by the hospitals for a quick visit when one of my employees was there, even if they were down the line a little bit. I found that extra 5 minutes out of my time, or 10, because I would go right by the hospitals. I could park in a hurry and run up in a hurry and just say, hello, I came to see you, and what can I do for you kind of stuff. Man, were those people loyal from that time on. Man, did the word get around. Man, was my time well spent. Now, I did a lot of things wrong. I don't want you to think I'm perfect on that. But I'm saying leaders must be able to communicate. But you can't communicate if you don't relate. And see, the more I know about you, the more I know. I don't really know that much about psychologists. I think if I'd have gone into the field of psychology, I'd have been a social psychologist because I liked the courses I took in it. I think a lot of the field of psychology, I'm not in that field, but I think I know enough about your focus on people, and you want to make sure that focus shows also in your leadership roles. It's not just a book thing, it's something that you show. So you must communicate. You must know your people and relate to them. So you ask yourself, what could I learn about my people that would help me be a better leader? What could I learn about my people that would help me be a better leader? I like to say you won't do great if you can't relate. You won't do great if you can't relate. Some things to know, just some things. I think the second article, the one about I guess it's the one, maybe it's from the first article, one of the ones I was looking at again, I'm kind of mixed up. I listed about 20 things. These are, does the person like what he or she's doing? If not, can you move them a little bit? Can you make some changes? Does the person get along with others? It helps you to know how that person gets along for you to understand what you can do to help that person. How well does the person perform on the job? Well, that's pretty key, isn't it? But to really find out, and then find out why not. Sometimes it's something you can do. These are just quick things. What is a person's strengths? What is a person's weaknesses? What can you do to help them improve their weaknesses? What can you do to play on their strengths? How does this person react to criticism? Ask yourself, how do you react to criticism is important. What motivates a person to do his or her best? You see, if you know what motivates them, you'll know how to motivate them. It's not just money. I tell you, thank you is one of the big motivators for anybody. What are the person's desires? What are their aspirations? Where do they want to go in life? Do you really know? Do you really have any idea? Now, if the person's really good, you're probably going to lose this person anyway, so why not help the person along? They'll never forget it that you helped them. Can I empathize with them? Can I build what's an appropriate relationship? It's not the same kind of a buddy-buddy relationship, but what's an appropriate supervisor-subordinate relationship? Just some of the many questions you can come up with your own. Now, ask what's in it for others. I wish I would have come up with this WIFO thing. I read it years ago. I've used it ever since. What's in it for others? My dad used to say, John, we're in the world to help others. I said, gee, Dad, what are the others for, to help me? He said, John, we're in the world to help others, and others are also supposed to help others. It was amazing. Then he'd recite a poem. He'd been around for a long time. I heard it 100 times from his lips. He'd say, isn't it strange that princes and kings and clowns that caper in sawdust rings and common people like you and me are builders for eternity? Each is given a bag of tools, a shapeless mass, and a book of rules. And each will be, ere time has flown, a stumbling block or a stepping stone. He said, Johnny, what do you want to be, a stumbling block or a stepping stone? I said, I want to be a stepping stone. He said, think about others. He planted that idea in me a long time ago. I wish I'd have been more faithful to it throughout my life. I'm trying to be more faithful to it now as I get older. What's in it for others? Look at these statements. This is the last thing I'm going to ask you to do. You can do it if you want to. Very infrequently down to very frequently. So it's VI, I, S, F, and VF. If you want to, you can just follow along and look at it. I ask others what they hope to achieve. Yeah, very frequently. Well, I really don't ask people what they want to achieve. Time to be honest now. I give them a reward before they begin. Oh, okay. Tasks can be designed to be self-rewarding. I hadn't thought of that. I figure if I'm happy, other people will work hard. Okay, doesn't hurt to be happy. I tell them if they're meeting expectations. I believe fear motivates people to work. I give much feedback to others. Actually, a job well done is good enough without praise. You don't need it. Job well done. I try to find what reward would appeal to them. I recognize good work as soon as possible. If the person's dragging his or her heels, I guess they're just lazy. I assess their ability before assigning tasks. Well, you don't need to take time to do this. Don't take time to do this. But I want you to look at this a minute. Why don't you see what people want to achieve? Why give them a reward before they begin? Maybe a little incentive. Never worked very well with my kids, giving them a reward beforehand, giving them their allowance before they did their work. The reward at the end rewards the work well done. Yes, I think tasks can be designed to be self-rewarding. Doesn't mean people don't know praise, but think about how you can design them. Just because you're happy doesn't mean others will work. Yeah, you better tell them if they're not meeting your expectations, why drop it on them later? Tell them as long as you go. Keep communicating. We haven't got much time to go through all those, but you can see what I'm trying to say here. You can see what I'm trying to say. Now, you must communicate and relate if you want to motivate. Let's face it, if you don't motivate, if you don't provide any motive for doing anything, if you don't inspire people, what makes you think they'll give their best? A lot of it's your attitude. Attitude is so important. Heard a story once about a little boy, came down to his breakfast table, took one bite of his pancakes and said, "These are terrible." His daddy said, "I don't like your attitude. Get back upstairs and come down again." He goes upstairs, comes back down, sits down and says, "Who's been eating my pancakes?" Well, his attitude didn't change. Did you know there's research out there, and some of you may be familiar with it, that shows that more people lose jobs because of attitude than because of incompetence? Look it up. Now, you have to be competent, but just think of the people you just soon get rid of, the people whose attitude is bad about everything. Think of the people who you'll give more coaching and training, the people who have a good attitude. You think, well, maybe doesn't quite have the competency, but maybe I'm failing in not giving the training, not giving the instruction. So attitude is important. The keys of communication and relation open the door to motivation. Whoop, I went the wrong way. Get into it. I want to tell you a story about motivation. I think some of you in here will remember when Dumbo was a movie that was popular before a lot of you were born that are watching me today, but not everybody that's in this room. Some of you were around. But Dumbo is about this little elephant. Now you look up the word Dumbo, it has a lot of interesting meanings. I won't go into those today. One thing, it means down under the Manhattan Bridge overpass. I found that out. Also, I know it's a code name for a big Navy thing that was going on in World War II. But Dumbo was this little elephant. Remember, Dumbo was born when circuses were big. Ringling Brothers is just closing down. It's kind of the last of it. But circuses were big when I was a kid. When a circus came to town, that was something to go to. So Dumbo was a little elephant that was born with these huge ears. And all the other elephants just teased him. He was an elephant only the mama elephant could love. Well, Dumbo felt pretty bad, but in the end, he was flying. And let me tell you what happened. There was a little mouse named Timothy Mouse that saw promise in Dumbo. And Timothy Mouse said, "Hey, Dumbo, with ears like that, if you would just take this magic feather that I got from the crow, if you put your trunk around that, with those ears, you start flapping them, you'll fly." Somebody believed in him. Dumbo tried it. He began to fly. He was soaring over everybody. All the people in the circus said, "Wow, look at Dumbo." Dumbo was so excited, he said, I'm flying," and he lost the feather and began to plummet. Timothy Mouse was right there and said, "Dumbo, it wasn't the feather. I was just teasing you. It's your ears. Start flapping those ears again." And he did, and he could fly. There's a real lesson there because, you know, we can encourage people and get the best out of them. We can encourage people and get the best out of them. It's important to motivate other people. Motivation is so key. Be an encourager. Take a minute or two here to tell a story, and I am watching the time. Are there any questions? If there are, I'll sure. Yes, what's your question? Yeah, okay.
While it is true we know our inherent strengths and weaknesses, however, when is self-exploration and testing boundaries appropriate in leadership and management?
You say, when is it appropriate?
When it self-exploration and testing boundaries appropriate in leadership
it?
and management?
It's always, if I understand the question, it's always appropriate to keep knowing what your boundaries are. It's always appropriate to know what your strengths are. It's always important to keep doing some self-evaluation. If I understood that question right, I don't think we ever outlive it. I have to do it all the time. I have to sit down and reflect. I have to ask people that report to me, be honest, tell me about it. Of course, one of the things I do is I reward people that tell me. I used to have a colonel work for me. He was actually my exec officer. And he would come in and say, Dr. Klein, I need to talk with you a minute, sir. I say, sure, come on in, Dan. He'd shut the door and say, did you know when you did such and such a thing, you realize the full effect of that? You might want to think about that again. Well, can I tell you, I got my feelings hurt every time. I pouted inside, but I didn't show it to him. I said, thank you, Dan. He went out. I thought about it. Whether I agreed with what he said or not, the next morning I always thanked him. The last man in the world I'd want to fire. He was honest. He's also one that when I said, no, it's going to be this way, he'd say, yes, sir. You're the guy that's responsible. Just thought I ought to tell you. So I think you've got to have people that help you. See, those of us, men in the room who have or are married, know that you, wives were always willing to tell us what was wrong. And women, maybe you're saying your husband tells you stuff too, and your kids will. Your kids will. We need people that can tell us candidly what they think. Did I miss the question, or was that it, do you think? That was it? Okay. Yeah, I just think we have to continue. Yeah. One more question, yes.
Please restate the name of the book you mentioned.
Okay, the one is by Pete Land, I think is the one they're talking about. Peter A. Land. It's How to Delegate Effectively. Peter A. Land's website is still up. He was a consultant. He's older than I am, which means he's really old. A good friend of mine. He wrote this book, How to Delegate Effectively, and I hope to get it out in a PDF in the next few weeks. He said I could. So hold on to it, and if you don't find it, let me know. It is the best little book. I mean, it's simple, so I can understand it. So I think it's simple so everybody can. He didn't put a lot of fluff in. I like the books that tell you how to do it without too much stuff and are backed up. See, this guy, deviate a minute here. When I was at Air University, I had academic, you know what a provost or vice president does. I also had an office of academic development. Now, in that office, we had such things as the International Officer School, which I used to teach at some, reported to me. We had the Academic Instructor School, which trained teachers how to teach more effectively. We had the Area University Press. We had a lot of different things. We had the Leadership Management Development Center, which had teams that the Air Force sent around, training teams. I think he had about 70 people employed in there at one time. Pete headed that up. Pete headed that up before it started working for me. But he was that kind of a guy. He headed up Leadership and Management Development. His books, which have never hit great popularity, they're just so practical. They're just the kind of stuff you can pick up and say, I think I should do that. So that was it, Peter A. Land. He's probably still got his books out there on his website, and you probably could contact him, but I'm going to get him in PDF soon. Okay. Glad that question was asked. Let me say something about encouragement because it's so important. I'll try to bring this to a close here in a little bit. You know, it doesn't take a scientific study to show what scientific studies show, scholarly studies show. People that are encouraged do better than people that aren't. They just are. I can cite research study after research study, but let me tell you a story. Again, this happened a long time ago, and it was in a small church, and they had a youth Sunday. And in this youth Sunday, they'd have the girls' trio sing, and the youth choir would sing, and they had somebody that read the scripture, and somebody that did this, and somebody that did that, and somebody had to give the little message, a sermon. So they came to this kid that was 16 years old. Said, this is your time. The kid said, not me. But they told his parents, and his parents sort of encouraged him the way parents can. He couldn't get out of it. So he went to his high school English teacher and said, I have to give this little message, this sermon. I have to do it in about 4 weeks. I need some help. She said, sure, I'll help you. She said, you'll like your main points here and you'll speak extemporaneously. The kid said, great, what does extemporaneously mean? Well, that means you'll have your notes, you know what you're going to do. It won't be word perfect, but you'll know just what you're going to cover. He said, okay. He said, all you'll have to carry is a little note card up there with you. You won't even probably need that because you'll know what your outline is and what things you're going to say. He said, okay. He said, now practice a lot. He said, okay. He lived on a farm, so he went out and practiced in the cornfield. He practiced in the hog lot. He practiced every place he went. There was a mirror in his house, big old mirror. He stood there and practiced. He had that thing down perfect. Now, it was Youth Sunday, and it was time for him to come up behind the pulpit. So he came in after the girls' trio had sang, after the youth choir had sang, after all these things. It was finally he came up like this and he looked out there. Holy cow, there were 100 people. There had never been over 65 there. And he looked and he saw friends of his. And oh no, his mind went blank. He could only remember what was written on a 3x5 card. His talk, which he'd planned to go from 20 to 25 minutes, lasted about 3 or less. He was mortified. He was embarrassed. He thought, I got to get out of here. He tried to get out while they were singing the last song, but they kind of wouldn't let him out. A woman came up to him and hugged him and says, oh, honey, that was so good. That was so good. And the guy shake his hand and say, good job, young man. Good job, young man. He said, really? He said, but I only went 3 minutes. And they said, but you said so much in 3 minutes. We hope you'll speak to us again. And I did. I often wonder, what if I hadn't had that encouragement at that time? Would have been a while. I was ready to go again. Everybody was encouraging me. Everybody was encouraging me. If somebody works hard and does the best he or she can, how important to encourage people. My friend Ken Blanchard, I don't know him real well, but we've talked some. Great writer. Ken said, and you have to really understand when they advertise Wheaties as breakfast of champions. He said this 20 years ago. He said encouragement is the breakfast of champions. How do you motivate people? You encourage them. So we talked today about these things. If there's any more questions, I'll take them. But leading and managing yourself so you can lead and manage the processes, so you can lead and manage the people. Mission first. People always. Now, I think I got another question back here, do we?
Yes, another question. Thanks for another helpful leadership training. I'm curious, how much do you think a leader should be transparent? Example, state explicitly how they approach leading a group. Can there ever be a downside of being transparent about how you are approaching communicating, listening, delegating, motivating, etc.?
Well, there's a time when you shouldn't be too transparent about what you're doing. But I think when it comes down to the communication skills, you should be transparent in your speaking, in your listening, in your writing, in your reading, in your nonverbal. But sometimes you have to be transparent to the point to say, I really can't talk about that here. Having worked around some things, and I had a top secret SCI, which a few people know what it means, clearance, which is pretty high. There were things I couldn't tell people. There are things I couldn't tell my family. There were things I couldn't tell my colleagues. I could listen to some very top secret stuff. And, if somebody would ask me, I'd say, I really can't talk about that. Now, sometimes you can get funny and say, I could tell you, but I have to kill you. That's just a kind of a funny thing you say. But you just say, I really am not cleared to talk about that. But that's being transparent. So as far as transparency, I think you ought to be transparent if you have nothing to hide. When you have something you must hide, then you have to admit, I cannot be transparent on that. But if you try to have the right character, if you try to do things right, then you won't be afraid of transparency. I don't know if that's exactly what the person was asking, but I want to make it clear that transparency is always good, but there are some things you cannot tell people because it's being operated yet at a higher level. But I will talk next time when I talk about change, the importance of getting people on board. Don't hide that when it's coming. Don't hide that. That's an important thing. Any more questions? Okay, now, I gave those 7 points. I'm not going to go over them again. I addressed these 7 points in different ways. So if you read that little article, you may get a little bit more out of it too. And this whole idea of it must be mission first and people always. People and processes. Well, thank you. Take a little break. We're going to come back for what I'm most excited about this next one, to tell you the truth. Thank you. Thank you. Yay, okay.